Michigan's Children proudly presents Speaking for Kids, the podcast where we explore crucial conversations impacting the lives of all Michigan children, youth, and families, especially the most vulnerable. Join us each month as we explore public policies and issues in the best interest of our kids and families. We'll bring you lawmakers and policymakers, advocates fighting for change, and the people most affected by those decisions. With our host, Matt Gillard, President and CEO of Michigan's Children, we'll invite you to become engaged too and show you how to take action on what matters most to you. Episodes are recorded live and shared virtually on YouTube and the audio hosting sites Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify.
Hello, I'm Matt Gillard, the President and CEO of Michigan's Children, and welcome to another edition of Speaking for Kids, a podcast brought to you by Michigan's Children, where we explore a timely topic every month, bring in some experts and some friends of ours to talk about an issue that we think is of importance for kids and families here in Michigan. And we're certainly excited about our topic for this month, as we are talking about an issue that's really front and center in the state budget debate that we see playing out in Lansing right now in the legislature and with the governor's office, and that's out of school time programming. So I have three great guests I want to introduce you to today that are joining us today, and we're going to have a conversation about the importance of after school programming and out of school time programming, and maybe give you guys some ideas that are listening on how you can get engaged in this issue and let your legislators know that you think this is an important topic that they should be prioritizing in this budget conversation. So first, I want to introduce a dear friend, Aaron Skeen Pratt, who is the Executive Director of the Michigan Afterschool Partnership, and then allow Aaron to introduce a couple of other guests we have that are doing great work in communities here in Michigan running after-school programs. So welcome, Aaron.
Thanks so much, Matt. I really appreciate you having us and definitely appreciate your support and Michigan's Children's support for out of school time. And you want me to introduce the guests as well?
Sure. Go ahead.
We have Winston Coffey, who is with the Midnight Golf Program in Detroit. And we have Ryan Walks, who is with Bridge Street Ministries in Grand Rapids. And these are both two phenomenal examples of out of school time programs in the state.
Well, welcome, Winston and Ryan. Thanks for the work that you're doing in Detroit and in the Grand Rapids, West Michigan area. And thanks for agreeing to be a part of this conversation today.
Awesome. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Matt. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's jump right into it. Aaron, I'll let you start, and then these guys can jump in as well. So talk to us a little bit about what we mean when we talk about after-school programs and why these matter so much for children and families, and why we all think, certainly you said Michigan's Children, but you as well, and everybody here thinks that this is a critical piece that really should be a priority for legislators.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Out of school time is, when we think about it, we talk about it as before, after, and summer learning programs. And we know that they are critical for youth between the ages of kindergarten all the way up until 12th grade. And we have evidence-based research from decades that really touts the importance of out of school time programs and really shows that youth who participate on a regular basis will do better academically, they'll have better social skills, they'll be more likely to graduate high school and have better attendance records, and they're even more likely to go to college and pursue jobs after high school. And so when you think about all of the various different priority areas of Democrats as well as Republicans in the state, when you look at education, when you look at childcare, when you look at workforce development, all of those different types of pieces, really the out of school time field is a key component of helping to move the state forward on all of those issues.
Absolutely. All right, Winston, let's start with you. Talk to us a little bit about Midnight Golf and maybe about the landscape of out of school time programs in the Detroit area.
Sure. As said, I'm with the Midnight Golf Program. We are a youth development program for high school seniors in Southeast Michigan. The majority of our students come from the city of Detroit, but we got branch out to Washtenaw, Macomb, and some other areas as well. And so our focus is to teach them the game of golf and then teach them all the life skills and soft skills that kind of go along with those young people who are fortunate enough to grow up in a country club existence or lifestyle. So all the things we think they're going to be beneficial for you that you don't get in a classroom, but we think are going to help propel you on to the next level. A lot of what we do is focused around getting prepared for college and next steps. We do have some students who go in other directions as far as trade or in service. etc. But a lot of what we do is focus around getting them prepared for the next step being college, and helping to propel them on in order to be successful when they make that transition after their senior year of high school.
Excellent. All right, Ryan, your turn. Let's hear a little bit about Bridge Street Ministries and the work you're doing around out of school time programming on in West Michigan.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, Bridge Ministries, we're a youth development organization. I appreciate, Winston, how you use that language, youth development. I think that's really important language that we use in this space. Uh, Tell you a little bit about what we do. We've got a number of programs from middle school all the way up to a gap year program that we run. But our primary for out of school time and after school programming it's a neighborhood based, middle school focused after school program. We've got a number of sites in the neighborhood right where the kids live, and it's really focused on our target demographic is middle school students from the local public school neighborhood schools. A number of reasons why we have that focus, but the reason we really focus on middle school is when you look at the landscape of youth development and after school programming, there's a lot of focus on early childhood development, really important critical work, Ready by Five and third grade reading level, all those really great initiatives. And then there's a lot of great work in the college and career readiness space. But when you look at that middle, what I like to call the missing middle, there's very little targeted effort for middle school youth development. And that's and we don't have enough time on this podcast to talk all about that, but that's where we're losing a lot of students in that middle, what I call the missing middle. And there's very little effort and targeted resource going toward middle school youth development.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad we have, both of you on, especially as practitioners in this field, but really with the different focus of the programs that you're running as well. So, Aaron, expand on that a little bit. I mean, this is, I think this is a good representation kind of out of school programming here in Michigan with our guest today. But there really is, quite a bit of variance amongst different programs as far as their focus, and the way they interact with young people within the whole umbrella of out of school programming. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And it also varies, as you can see, from ages. There are some that will focus just on elementary school, part of elementary school, some that will focus on just middle school or high school, and some will focus on all three. It really varies based off of community needs. And that's really the beautiful part of out of school time is that, as you can hear from both of these speakers, they're truly looking at what is the need in their community and what do the youth need and want, and helping to fill that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another beauty from an advocacy standpoint, and you alluded to this in your earlier comments, is about the strong data that we have that shows the real results from investments in these programs. So, Winston, let's talk with you again a little bit more. What are some of the barriers that you're seeing for young people who want to engage in programs like yours or other out of school time programs in and around Metro Detroit?
I mean, I think it's awareness is obviously the largest piece. I think as was stated by Aaron, there are a lot of programs around the state of Michigan and even in Southeast Michigan. I think the young people who need programs like the ones we're talking about are often not informed about what's available to them. So that is a huge barrier, is just making sure that everyone has the same access. For us in the city of Detroit, especially, there are some high performing high schools that are well aware of what we do, and their students are kind of gamed and prepped to take part in the things that we do. And for us, the focus is making sure that everybody has access, not just a certain group of young people, but that everyone who wants this type of information or access to a program like ours, that they all are going to be able to do it. So the largest thing is just making sure that everyone's aware that they're able to do it. And then also transportation sometimes can become a barrier in the way of getting to our facilities, and folks who are in different parts of the city or Southeast Michigan finding ways to be able to get here if there's they may have some insecurities at home or some things that are make it difficult for them to be able to get to a facility to participate in a program like ours twice a week. So those are some of the primary issues that we run into. But once we get them, typically everybody wants to be able to take advantage of those type of programs. The majority, I should say, want to be able to take advantage of them. So once we get them, it's not an issue. It's actually making sure they're aware, and then physically getting them here are some of the big barriers.
Yeah, I'm certain that we hear that from programs from around the state as well. Ryan, how about you? Are there some of the similar barriers that you're seeing on the west side?
Yeah, we see those as well. I think I would add to that to say not only access but availability, and then resourcing. Availability. Just give you an example. We serve we have a target on four different middle schools. GRPS has four or five neighborhood middle schools, about 1,200 students total. That would be our target demographic. We've got, we're working on an expansion plan that will give us capacity for two or 300 a year in the coming years. And that's out of 1,200. And then when you look at other available programs for multi-day after-school programming, I mean, it's available, the availability is a few hundred for 1,200 students. And so there's just not enough availability. And then the resources as well. It's an under-resourced sector, which is why this 32N funding with the state budget is so critical and so vital. And then part of it too is just I think these kind of conversations are so important to elevate the importance of what we do in this space. That's not seen as supplementary, as ancillary, but it's actually critical for youth development.
I'll piggyback the capacity piece. I did mention we get to serve in our program 250 high school seniors a year. We get close to 2,000 applicants, and we have to dwindle it down to 250 as a matter of capacity and what we can afford to really serve as well.
And
Yeah,
with that, I think feeding off that, there's a fundamental misunderstanding on a kind of on a communal level on the importance of this. And I'm sure, Winston, you have similar questions when you're looking at resources and partners, and you always ask, well, who else is doing this? And people don't want to have too many people doing youth development. And I like to tell people, we just need more people doing, you should not be worried about duplication because the need and the opportunity is so great. You could duplicate our program tenfold and there still wouldn't be enough.
We haven't got to a duplication issue yet. It's not a thing.
No, absolutely. No, and I want to jump into the resource conversation in a minute, but just maybe real quickly before we get to that, and any of you, even Aaron, you can jump in on this. So, I think the other thing that we need people to understand is that this is much more than just academic support, right? I mean, certainly there's an academic support component to it, but there is much more than that. So talk a little bit about things like mental health support, like confidence, like career readiness, social development, and some of these other aspects that we know are real strengths of quality out of school time programming and how you incorporate that into your models.
Yeah, I can go. We've got four pillars of development that we focus on. We're a faith-based organization, so spiritual development's one of them. Academic achievement's a pillar of development, social and emotional health, and then community engagement. So we have those four pillars of development, and we've got programming designed for all four of those. And the academic piece is just one of them. And I think it's important. We work with some of the most vulnerable and marginalized communities in our city. And so we've got a number of families that are facing homelessness and food insecurity. And um, often the focus on after school programming is the academics on a community level. But I think people need to understand that a lot of times parents, they're trying to get a roof over their kid's head. They're trying to get a meal for the next day. They don't have the cognitive capacity given just the struggle that they're in. And that's not the right word. It's not, they don't have the cognitive, they're just, when you're in struggle every day, you don't have the
Absolutely.
capacity to think about the academics. You got to think about the basic needs. And so we need a real collaborative approach with partners from all over the city in order to meet the basic needs so that we can do the development work that we want to do with youth.
Yeah, no, I think for us, social and emotional elements are huge. Obviously, we consider ourselves a college going program, but a lot of times to even get to the conversation about, exploring something like the idea of college, especially because we have across all demographics of young people, there are often other barriers we have to get through first, right? Like things that are centered around mental health, centered around other obstacles or things that they had before we ever got our hands on them. So just being able to be there in a supportive way for them and those things, even talking about them. I mean, as an 18 or 17-year-old, large of the population that we're serving, sometimes it's their first conversation about mental health, like a real conversation about the things that they might have to unpack in order to pursue the things that they want to pursue. So being able to have that dialogue, having trusted adults, advisors, and mentors that they're meeting with twice a week in our program who become counsel, to have conversations centered around those things to be able to help remove barriers to allow them to pursue whatever it is they choose to pursue. It's a big part of the work that we get to do outside of just the academic things that we're a part of, and then even propelling them into new arenas, college and internships and career aspirations, et cetera. Where we're still working with them through those different phases. So it's a lot of things encompassed kind of around the higher education pursuit for us, but a lot of other things that kind of become a part of the conversation. And even from a lot of times, sometimes with the familial standpoint, like we become a large part of their family and council base to help kind of propel them on to the things that they are interested in and hope to do in the long run. So it crosses a lot of things, and obviously the soft skills are the kind of the root of soft skills in golf, are the root of what we're doing and trying to implore and share with them. So.
That's awesome. No, it's awesome. Both of you guys, this is awesome stuff. All right. So, Aaron, let's talk about a little bit about this resource thing, right? So, I would say under your leadership, especially, but what we've seen from an advocacy perspective, really coming out of the pandemic, was a growing support, a growing interest, at least from elected officials and legislators across both parties, in encouraging and growing our public investment into out of school time programming. So, talk a little bit about that, where we stand right now, how much money the state's investing currently, what's on the table here, and where we'd like things to see things go.
Thanks to bipartisan support, really starting with Governor Whitmer, as well as at the time Representative Tom Albert, who is now a state senator. Again, the bipartisan support for this has been phenomenal, but we started with them and it was $5 million about 4 years ago. And thanks to their support, others, as well as a great deal of support on the ground level from out of school time providers, parents, and youth. We've been able to grow to 75 million this past year. And it is a competitive grant process that goes through the Michigan Department of Lifelong Education Advancement and Potential. But that 75 million is estimated to serve about 90,000 youth across the state, which is huge. And in this next, budget, or in the budget negotiations going on right now for next year's budget, fortunately, the governor has put in 135 million, the Senate put in 135 million, and then the House put in at least 75 million. So I say at least because I think we're in a good spot, for the negotiations between the two. And looking forward to once they go into a conference committee and are able to look and decide what is going to happen. And we're also really hopeful that, Matt, as you and I have talked about many times, that this budget year will be the budget, or I should say the budget negotiations will move a little faster this year and hopefully be done by July 1 so that the folks who are the out of school time providers who do receive these funds are then able to start work sooner this year.
Absolutely. I'm breaking my knuckles here, knocking on my table with all those those hopeful thoughts here. But yes, you're right. So first and foremost, as Aaron indicated, we are on track, at least as of now, with the legislature to see a budget passed for our next fiscal year, which will start October 1, but passed by the July 1 deadline. There's still some hurdles to overcome and obviously some differences in the versions that we've seen. But we are on track. And as Aaron indicated, out of school time programming has become a priority for both parties, both chambers, and that's something we need to continue to build on. And it's imperative for everybody who's listening to this program that agrees with us and feels strongly about this to let their legislators know that this should be a priority in our state budget. And this is something, and both Winston and Ryan as well, you indicated resources and capacity are issues. We know that as well, that, you guys are doing great work in your communities, but you could be serving even more families and more kids with more resources. And it's important that we continue these resources that the state is putting in, but also build upon that and create more opportunities for kids around the state to participate in wonderful programs like you're running. What do you guys hear in your communities, either from conversations with elected officials or the general public, about support for these programs?
I mean, I think it's definitely it's a conversation piece out there. I mean, for us, again, centered around higher education, we know that the state has goals of 60 by 30 as far as students getting certifications and degrees. So, a large part of the conversations we get to have with legislators, et cetera, is kind of centered around that armament element of investing in us being able to reach those goals from a state level. So that's a huge part of the conversation. And who are the folks? Ryan indicated there's a lot of people in the space, not enough, but making sure that everybody's on an accord to kind of push those ideas and the programs that are doing the work to be able to help reach those state goals centered around higher ed and certification.
Yeah, I know I've been really encouraged. The representatives that I interact with here, Representative Glanville, Senator Brink, Senator Huizenga, there is a real, in a very divisive, divided time, this seems to be a unifying issue, which I'm really, really excited about. I think the thing to highlight too, we've been really just excited with the increased funding, but it's worth noting that that still doesn't meet the need. It doesn't meet the need of a specific program that gets the funding, and it also doesn't meet the overall need of the number of people that apply. And so the forward progress needs to continue. And I think again, it goes back to a kind of a community level. We need to understand that investing in our youth is investing in the future, and we get this on an economic development. I live in Grand Rapids where there's so many really exciting building projects happening that are really great for the city that I'm excited about. In the city and the state, they invest so many millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in these economic incentives because they know that there's a return on the investment years down the road. We need to see the same in youth development, and there needs to be a higher level of youth development, understanding that if we invest now, we'll see the return in the future. But in the spaces that Winston and I work in, people want to see the return next quarter, next semester, next school year, and it's just not going to happen. It's going to happen in 10 years. And so we need to just have that same mindset when it comes to youth development.
Delayed
Yeah.
gratification.
Yeah,
That's right.
we do know that for every $1 invested in out of school time here in the state, we see about $3 in returns. And there is a huge return on investment for supportive out of school time. But Ryan's absolutely right that we just don't have enough. When I hear from families and as to why youth aren't participating in programs, it's because of issues with access. There's just the programs aren't there. Affordability, they can't afford it, and then transportation. And so those are really the three main issues. And again, super grateful for the support that we've received from the legislature and the governor to date. But as Ryan said, it's unfortunately not enough to meet the demand. And there are a lot of kids who are frighteningly young and home alone, and so that's concerning from a younger elementary age perspective. But then also there's a lot of youth who are missing out on incredible experiences. And yes, a lot of it can be academic, it can really help with our literacy rates, etc., but so much of it too is that social connection that they have with another caring adult. And really, these programs are not just meeting the needs of the youth, but I'm also seeing them a lot of times helping to meet the needs of families too.
Absolutely. And from an advocacy perspective, as I said before, I mean, this is an issue where the data is clear. The data is clear on the results, the benefits of these programs, as individually to the participants, but also for the need that's out there as well. And so this is this is an issue that it's easy for us to go in and make the case with lawmakers that this should be a priority. And we have been successful in the last couple of years in doing so, and with the committed work from everybody who's listening today, as well as the individuals here as guests, I'm certain we'll be able to continue to do this. And one other point I'll note: we're talking specifically about state investment into these programs right now, but there also is federal investment into these through the 21st Century Community Learning Program grant that's been around for a long time. Michigan does receive federal monies to offer out of school time programming as well, but it's been really important for us to layer more state resources and state funding on top of that to provide more opportunities. And we're going to continue to fight to continue to do that. Well, anything else you'd like to add before we close out here from any of my guests?
Well, thanks for adding the 21st century component for the federal piece. And unfortunately, again, that was eliminated from the president's skinny budget. So we are hopeful that the U.S. House and Senate will keep that critical program in place. It delivers about $36 million to the state and serves about 20,000 kids. And it's an essential out-of-school time funding stream. We're also really grateful, too, that we're starting to see some local investments. So Mayor Sheffield and the City Council recently put in $2 million to after-school programs. And that really excites me because my hope is that's something and a trend that we can start seeing across the state and local government seeing as well.
Kudos to her. She's been pretty consistent since she's been in legislative with involving youth. So
She's great.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. I think it's these conversations that highlight the importance of it, that elevate the importance, and it's these conversations that elevate the work, the youth, those of us that are doing the work and advocating for the work. I think the more we do this, I think the more resources we're going to see.
Well, thank you all. I want to thank Aaron Skeen Pratt from the Michigan Afterschool Partnership, Winston Coffey from Midnight Golf, and Ryan Walks from Bridge Street Ministries. Most importantly, for the work that they're doing every day to make Michigan a better place to be a kid and to raise a family, but also for agreeing to join me today and have this important conversation. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. And as well as we indicated, if this is an issue that's of importance to you, please reach out to your legislators at both the state and the federal level here in the next month and let them know that this should be a priority when they're making their decisions around our state and our federal government's budget. And tune in, and as always, you can follow along at michiganschildren.org, where we'll keep you updated both on what's happening around the state budget, but also on federal budget negotiations as they start to ramp up here in the next couple of months as well. So thanks, everybody, and tune in again next month for another edition of Speaking for Kids, a podcast brought to you by Michigan's Children.
You've been listening to Speaking for Kids, the podcast for Michigan's Children with host Matt Gillard. Thanks for joining us. To explore these and other issues relevant to our state's children, youth, and families, and to build your advocacy muscle, go to our website at www.michiganschildren.org. You'll find links and news about past and future podcast topics under our Resource tab and action alerts under the Take Action tab. Find and like us on Facebook and Twitter. Stephen Wallace produced this podcast. Contact them with your questions and ideas for other topics. Michigan's Children is a nonprofit advocacy organization, an independent voice working to reduce disparities in child outcomes from cradle to career through policy change.